great. The thing I always find funny when I just before I go live is I open up the YouTube stream just to watch it happen, and it always says something like 2 people waiting, and I always assume that's me because I've got that screen open and one of you. I don't know if any of you've got.
It could be.
But now it says 3 are waiting, so hopefully there'll be a few more joining us in a moment. And hello anyone that is in the live chat. Oh, there we go. It's working. So how is everyone?
Hello there. Yeah, well, we're still in the heat wave in the UK, aren't we? I'm actually using it because I'm oiling my acoustic guitar, so it's drying quicker.
Nice.
So how hot is a UK heat wave then?
Okay, we get to this. If it's about anything over 30 degrees, it's too hot for us.
Okay, yep. Just a bit of context.
I believe that the humidity is quite different, so it does make a difference.
Yeah.
But regardless of whether it's a heat wave or not, the Met Office, so that's the meteorological sort of centre that does all the research into weather conditions and history of weather and predicting weather for the country, or an official one anyway. It released some figures today that basically showed that we're in the last certain number of years, I think it's 5 years or whatever, we're just having extreme bouts of weather. So extreme heat, extreme rain at times of the year, and nothing staying as consistent as it used to be. And in the last decade, the weather's patterns changed quite significantly in this country. So global warming.
That's caused a real problem for us in the UK because, I mean, the weather is the topic, because it would change every day. It would either be dreary or slightly less dreary. I mean, this is going to change the whole culture, isn't it? Let's be honest. Oh, dear.
Yeah, I'll just say hi to. I'm a bit behind. I was just saying hi to people in the chat, but there's a few more. So we've got Alan, Trent, Barry, and Jason. Fantastic.
Hi there.
Hey guys. So we're having extreme weather here in Texas. We have flooding and flooding. So what about you, Arran? Any extreme weather happening where you are?
Where our winter at the moment, it has been a bit warmer than other winters, so which I've been quite enjoying. So it's daytime temperatures are like 13 to 16. But we're having not much rain and not much wind, so we're getting these really nice sunny winter days, which are fantastic. So, but I'm kind of thinking that it means that we will be going into a summer which could be quite extreme and quite warm. And for where we are, it's the bushfire season over summer. That's what hits us the most with the extreme lack of rain. So all the vegetation is nice and dry, and then you get extreme heat over summer and things just burn. So they're the things that that get on the news in terms of planning and what the potential summer could be like. So, but look, it is a nice warmer winter at the moment, which is quite good.
It's so weird this winter. Arran, I'm not sure. There's something wrong with your mic, I think. I don't know if it's actually picked up your headphone mic as opposed to your main mic.
It's just some static.
Oh, okay.
We can put up with it. Don't worry if it's not.
Yeah. I'll have a play
while Aaron's doing that. I'm just going to share something with everyone on the screen. It's not like I'm sharing my inner secrets there. That's what it sounds a bit like. I saw something today that I thought was really cool, and I haven't really told Dave about it. I started telling him, but gave up because I thought better to share it on the screen. So it's a company I've not heard of before, Llewellyn guitars. But I saw this and thought it was amazing. Look, it's got 9,000 likes, or nearly 10,000.
That's so cool.
That is clever.
It's almost like watching one of those Japanese woodworking.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
But then again, like I said, he's going to screw it in, which kind of defeats the purpose for me. Like, I get that you want to have it repairable for the future, but for me, if I had that, I would just glue it in, done.
Yeah, I feel like it could just be like a set neck once it's in.
Yeah. Gosh. So is that machined on a CNC then? Is it? Do you think?
It doesn't look like it, but if you watch it again, if you look closely, it looks like he's marked it all out by hand.
Right. Gosh. So that's a dovetail and a circle and a semicircle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting. But you sort of want to see that.
Yeah. So I built a neck pocket very similar. So I built a neck pocket that was not square. It was concave to accommodate a concave neck. And the neck did not have a heel. It was just concave. Well, it was a round neck with the profile all the way to the end. So it didn't have a heel. And then I built a pocket to accommodate that. But what I had to do was put 2 carbon fiber dowels in there so that I knew where the center was. And it was going to be the 2 dowels that allowed me to essentially center it, but also keep it stable while I glued it on. Otherwise, if you have like that round carve your neck and you clamp it down, you have no idea like where it's going to go, right? Because it's all round. But yeah, it's a cool method. I think everybody should be trying to do something like that.
Yeah, so I've just seen. So it was Llewellyn Guitars, but it was a collaboration with this Alex, Peay Alex, and who looks like from the Instagram page a furniture maker. And here is a similar thing, a rotating dovetail joint on a chair that he was building.
Yeah, it's
so
really
I guess look at that.
Amazing, isn't it?
Beautiful.
I spoke to a boutique guitar builder the other day who will remain anonymous because I'm not sure they want me to talk about what they said off air about, like, put words into their mouth. But they were saying that, like a lot of people, it's really hard selling guitars at the moment. People just don't have money for it, and they were thinking they might just get into furniture building because they still have their creativity element, but it feels like there's a bigger market for that. I think they said they would be a bit disappointed if that happened because they'd rather make guitars. But
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, no, it must be tough out there. Yeah. No, I was before I came on. I was just watching Mark's video on the carbon carbon fiber guitar. Yeah, that was really interesting, and I just wonder what everybody thinks of guitars with speakers in, because I mean, they've been doing it for years and years and years, but not electric ones. But interesting. Was the sound good?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're coming along better. Here's the one problem with guitars with speakers in it. You get this feedback loop. So just like if you're taking your electric guitar and you stand by your amp and you get feedback, you get that with these guitars no matter what. If you raise the volume, you get that sympathetic ringing of the strings because it's basically making a loop.
Yep.
And so you can play with that to your advantage, but it also means you can't go terribly loud. And they've addressed some of that in this version of the guitar, but it's still there. And I really do think it's about a different culture. So what we're really talking about here are some culture that perhaps I always think about Japan, right? Where you have small apartments, you have people who aren't like playing loud, they don't need amps. Maybe there's a lot of people who need to like travel a lot and they need that built-in speaker. There's probably a lot of reasons why you would want a guitar like that, but I just don't feel like it sells very well or it's marketed very well here in the States.
No. I mean, I think, as you say, for traveling, and particularly when you've got a really nice amp in there and you've got the effects that obviously are in that guitar, then I can see the advantage of that. And I think you said, for just basically sitting down, writing stuff, practicing stuff, it's just ideal.
It's very ideal. Absolutely. And the other thing too is like the idea of carbon fiber. I know that I go on and on about carbon fiber, but like there was a time for all of us, like all of us builders, everybody in the chat, everybody watching, when guitar building was a mystery, right? And we kind of like tried to pursue kind of figuring out all those mysteries. And then sometimes, and then like with you, Dave, you're now on your like path of like acoustic guitars, and that's probably very mysterious also, right? And to me, when I look at carbon fiber guitars, it's still a mystery. Like I have no clue how they do it and how they get to that level of perfection. And so that's why I'm so interested in them, because the mystery is still there for me with carbon fiber.
Yeah, no. I'm really interested with it. And also I'm interested, what's the sort of weight like that compared with a wooden guitar? I mean,
it's actually pretty heavy. So like a lot of people don't get it. Like carbon fiber is a heavy material.
Right.
And if you were to take like a standard like guitar drop top, like a top you'd put on a guitar, and you had the equivalent top on carbon fiber, the carbon fiber would be way, way heavier. It's just full of resin, and it's very hefty. And so I haven't actually held a carbon fiber guitar that's light before. And this one, even though it's kind of like a sandwich and it's chambered, I mean, it's chambered even in the neck. Like there's chambering throughout. It's still on the heavier side, yeah.
Right. No, it's fascinating.
I've got a guitar here with speakering, but I haven't been wiring it up. But it was one I got in a charity shop for £5, and as part of the book I've been writing, I used it to experiment on. So my daughter's like did some drawings on it and put stickers on it, but it's covered in it's got a poly finish on it, and it's the second guitar I picked up today that I've worked on that I put the same poly finish on the neck, so it's sort of a satin poly neck. I love it. It feels really good. I thought I'd gone off having for my own playing that kind of shiny neck. It's not gloss. It's more of a satin finish.
Satin.
I like that feeling. I think poly's the way forward.
Right, I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
I'll mark your mute.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, can you get a feedback loop on that? Because the speaker.
Well, I only just I haven't tuned it up, and it's got no battery in it. I've taken the battery cover off. I haven't put the wire in yet. Not only is it not got a I was thinking I'll just put battery in and see.
Because essentially, it's basically like a sustainer system. So it's going to do this feedback loop.
Well, I remember when we got it from the charity shop trying it out. I don't remember it having that. Maybe. I'm sure we can.
Putting it out of phase, doesn't that cancel it to a certain extent? So that the sound coming out is actually slightly out of phase with the note you're playing. I know
Interesting.
a conference room where that was placed because of the microphones were close to the speakers, but this system just put it slightly 180 degrees out of phase, and that effectively stopped it feeding back.
So what I'll do when I wire it up is I'll switch the wires round.
No,
it could be a metal feedback machine.
No, it's interesting you talk about the poly finish. Because the finishing of the guitar is always the problem for me. And I mean, with this acoustic, I'm just using stuff called Liberon finishing oil, and it's just I like it because you put lots and lots of thin coats on, and you get a reasonable gloss, and you don't get runs and that sort of stuff. I mean, if you really want a nice sort of shiny, I don't know, showroom finish, what do you recommend as the best sort of approach to use for that?
Well, I don't know if any of you follow Eddie, Electric Lady Guitars Devon on Instagram. So he's in the chat a lot. He's been on before. He just put up a guitar that he'd done in True Oil, and it had this amazing gloss finish. So you can definitely with oils get a good shiny finish. And I think the way you do that is as you apply more layers, and with True Oil you put quite a lot of layers on. You sand between the layers, increasing the grade of the sand each time. And I think I've never done this. I've done that, but I've never applied the oil with the sandpaper. But I think some people do that as well.
Yeah, I've been doing that. I've got some of these cloth, sort of, I don't say cloths, quite thick cloths, which have got a 1000 grit. It's a bit like a scouring pad you might use in the sink, but It's 1,000 grit, and that's pretty good. So I've been using that as I put the coat on, and then just smoothing it off with a rag. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of finish I get. But yeah, no, it's just that it's those really, almost look like there's a glass cover over.
Yeah, so because I think it's up in our archive. Garby did one. She was talking about her process, and she does something at the end to get it really shiny.
Right.
And it's something to how I think she dilutes the final coat.
Okay.
I think that's what she does to do it. But I'm pretty certain as well, but I would always do a test. But with that Libron oil, you could use burnishing cream at the end as well to help do it.
Have a go at it.
That's
But I might be wrong on that. But, sorry, Arran.
Trying that the wet sanding with an oil or a finish, which I haven't done, and I've seen a lot of other woodworkers in different areas use. So I've mostly used oils and wipe on poly, but just for filling the grain. So for woods that are open poured. So Dave, if that's the way you've sort of doing it, maybe you've sort of discovered that as well, that it will sort of flatten it out. So often, even though I'll use a wipe on poly and do 10 coats, you can still feel, if it's an open poured timber, you can still feel like a bit of the grain pattern coming through. Whereas I think that's the idea. If you use the sandpaper and essentially wet sand the oil or something, it fills the grain, and then you get a flatter surface. So possibly that is a way to build up a shinier, flatter finish doing it that way.
Well, I'll tell you, because I'm in 8 coats in at the moment, so it's not there yet.
I recently got some oil from Chestnut Products, who are UK based. So I think you can get them in Europe. I'm sure you can't get them in America or Australia. But I bought 3 different oils from them, or got 3 different oils from them. They kind of gave them to me. Some of them it recommends only 2 coats of them,
right?
Because they work differently. And some of them come in different versions, one which is gloss and one which is matte. So it naturally finishes a bit differently. But all of them recommend that if you want it a gloss finish, you should, before you put the oil on, try and fill all the pores with a sanding sealer.
Right, yeah.
As opposed to filling with the oil.
On that note, Daniel, I was telling you about the latest Rhett Shull video. He's interviewing this amazing guitar player, a telly player. I don't know where the guy lives, but he's also a luthier. And he goes into his shop, right? And this guitar player, luthier, is talking about how he fills the grain for swamp ash, because he builds a lot of tellies, right? And he makes his own filler out of egg whites. And he says he got the idea from a local violin maker. Apparently in the violin making community, they use egg whites because you can sand it very easily. It's easily sandable. And so he makes his own pigments too. So he takes carbon he gets from the art supply store, mixes it with the egg whites, fills in the grain, and apparently it fills in wonderfully and it's easily sandable. And if you think about it, sanding sealer, it's tough to sand that stuff, especially some of the more resin fillers. You're spending all day long sanding back that filler. It's a drag. So egg whites.
Egg whites.
Yeah. I've not used a resin filler, but the sanding sealers are made to be easy to sand normally.
Yeah.
But maybe not egg white quality. Because the sanding sealers have something that when they dry, it's on the surface to help with the sanding when you're. So I can't remember. I tell you what,
Yeah.
I recently mentioned that product, but I forgot to say.
I've used the Stu Max sanding sealer that comes in the can, the spray can. It's okay. Right. I mean, yeah.
I guess they're all different, aren't they? Depending on what their base is. So the shellac one is probably very different to a nitro sanding sealer. But the what I liked about the Chestnut Products, they've got a YouTube channel, and on their YouTube channel they explain some of the science behind how some of the products works, and I found that quite interesting. But I cannot remember offhand exactly how the sanding sealer works. But it has these little elements in it which are designed to help with sanding. That's why you put it on.
Right. I'll be honest.
It's smooth.
I've never used a sanding sealer at all. It's one of those things.
Well, I would definitely say if you are wanting to get a gloss finish, you should check which product you're using and see what it recommends. And if it recommends using a base first, then...
So Daniel, the sanding sealer that I used from Sumac was a nitro-based sanding sealer to use with their nitro products. And to me, it seemed like it was just clear nitro, but you're saying there's some kind of other element in there probably, right?
So so with the shellac sanding sealer, it definitely has another element in it, which is designed to allow it to be thick enough to fill pores, but to assist with sanding, so that when you're sanding, you can get a really smooth surface. I don't know if it's the same, but Barry's mentioned in the comment here that there's a pumice stone powder that you can use for grain filling. So I wonder if it's the same theory. I'm not 100% sure, but when you get, excuse me, when you get things like primers and sanding sealers that some companies describe as basically they're the same thing, I think if you what they're essentially doing is something that lays thicker initially, as opposed to something that has those properties of the other sanding sealers. But again, I don't know. I think it depends on the product and the make, because a lot of companies I noticed when I used to just buy cans of stuff say primer, and I don't think that's the same really as a sanding sealer. That's why it says primer on it. And I don't know what the chemical difference, for example, is between having a nitro or a poly that is a satin or a gloss finish. I'm assuming the real difference is just how it settles, so that it settles naturally satin and naturally gloss. But whenever I want something gloss, I'm not going to leave it. I'm going to sand it back and sand through different grades and then polish it, buff it to get a proper gloss, because that's going to be much better than out of a can. And you can do that with a satin one because you're just polishing it back. And I don't think there's a difference in the final result when you sand them back. So I always just buy the satin stuff, because then I can get the gloss if I want it, or just have it out the can, the satin finish. Although even that, quite often to get the satin finish, I'll end up sanding it back and just not going through all the whole process of buffing it.
Right. And this is going to sound like a silly question, but with the sanding sealers, are they transparent for, if you're doing, a wood? Or
it depends. Yeah, I've used the nitro-based sanding sealers, and just like Daniel said, I think it just goes on thicker to build up quicker. But then I've used Stumac's vinyl sealer, which is white, which you put under opaque colors to, I guess, make them pop a little bit. Yeah.
See, that sounds like a primer. I don't know what the difference between primer and sealer is, but in my mind, I'm thinking, the difference between a primer and a sanding sealer. I think a sealer and a primer are probably the same, but when you have the word sanding in it, I think that is, in my mind, should be when it has that extra element that allows you to sand. So it has that extra thing in it that makes it easy to sand.
Right.
I think when I've looked into it for the couple of times I've done a spray finish, that's where I got confused. So, and I think part of it is that different companies use different terminology to describe their products. So you look at one thing, and then you look at another company, and it uses different words to describe something that could be the same thing. But when you're unsure, it's really hard to work out actually what's what and what you should be putting on.
So there's a primer I like called High Coat. It's a British company. I don't know if you can get it abroad. It's a primer, or they make automobile paints basically, and they have a range of primers. So I did a test on, at the time, 4 of their primers. They now have more than that. I filmed it all to make a video, and that's when like 2 years ago when we started doing this, I just sort of stopped making videos really. But one day I'll go and edit it. But what I found was they have an acrylic primer, a high build primer. They have like their Body Shop primer, which is more expensive, and then there was maybe a vinyl one or something that wasn't acrylic, and they essentially all were the same when I did the tests. I couldn't really see much difference, apart from the more expensive one had a much better can and a much better nozzle, and it sprayed much nicer.
Okay, so that's why it was more.
But they come in different colours, and if you're painting over the top, the base colour's often quite important. So, like, if you want a bright colour, like if you're painting yellow or orange or something like that, I believe, I can't tell you why, but a grey primer is normally better than a white or a black primer.
Really?
Yeah.
You're going to say white then? Yeah.
I can't tell you why, but that's what's recommended.
Right.
There must be some science behind it. Maybe it just seems to, because the paints are thinner, maybe it doesn't show up your flaws as easily. That seems a bit silly as a reason why. But then some of the paints I've used, like the chameleon paints and some of the metallic paints, would say you should have a black primer underneath or black base underneath.
Right.
And you could just do any primer or sealer and then spray a black and then spray those colours. But if you can get a primer that's already black, it's saving you time.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We've got a few first-time watchers or first-time watching live. Hi, Ben. Ben's just started his first build, and earlier on we had who was it in the chat? Jason, who's getting close to revealing his guitar brand. So thanks for being here, and do share what happened.
Well, I'll tell you a tip that I've just discovered talking about finishes and stuff. And because I'm using on the neck of this acoustic guitar I'm building a wood called Panga Panga, which is a bit like Soprano, and it does splinter, and it's certainly not the ideal thing for a fretboard, which I've used it for. So I thought I'd use the old trick of putting some CA glue on it. The only thing I did was put the CA glue on after I'd cut the slots. All the slots filled in with dust and glue, and it's been an absolute nightmare to clean them out because I put the binding on as well. So if you do that trick, and it does work, I mean, it really does seal the wood, and it gives it a nice hard finish. I know Ben Crow used it on that really old wood guitar that he built a while back. But yeah, best to put it on first, then cut the slots. So my tip for the week.
I tried finishing those one-string guitars I was making, so they're quite small. I tried finishing a few of those in different things, and I used CA glue on one of those, and it was pretty good. And like you said, it's quite hard, but over larger areas, I found it hard to work with because as I was spreading it over larger areas, it felt like it wasn't settling quite as consistently.
Yeah.
As something that's like a spray, but also, God, it's really toxic.
You've got to have all the kit on. You can't. Yeah, you have, because I mean that is you've got to mask up for that. There's no doubt about it. No,
does it feel like it's going to cure like too quick when you're spreading it around the glue? That's what I'd be afraid of.
Yeah, as soon as you put it on, it starts to. You've got to really work quick on it.
Yeah.
I mean, with the wood I've got, it was soaking into the wood, so it wasn't sort of settling on the top, and so that worked, I think. Okay, but yeah, I don't think
also, I can't remember the scientific term, but it's the reaction of it curing gives off heat, so you've got to be super careful if you're applying it with rags and things, that it doesn't catch fire.
Wow. Exothermic reaction.
Yeah, but I'm not. So like when I learnt to French polish, we were told when you finish your polishing, lay your rags flat on the floor and leave them overnight before putting them in the bin. Because if you put lots in the bin, then because of the heat, they can cause the bin to combust.
I have a bucket with water in. I stick them all in that.
Ah, clever idea.
So something, I mean, if you guys have seen Ty's Instagram reels, like the resin wipe on, wipe off method works really well too. So you take resin, you wipe it on your wood just for a few seconds, and then you wipe it off. So you're essentially using resin like an oil, right? Wipe on and then immediately wipe off, and it leaves, and you got to wipe it off a lot. Now, this is something that Ken Parker also does on his arch tops. And Ken Parker says you got to wipe everything off. So as soon as you lay it on there, you get as many clean paper towels as you can, and you wipe everything off. But it does leave a nice sheen behind, and it's protecting it in some manner. And it's got to be soaking in there at least a little bit. I think that's a really cool method.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've yet to do that. I'm intrigued by it because it seems to work so well.
Mm.
I've definitely fallen in love with, apart from today when I've been on these two guitars with the poly on, which I've quite enjoyed, because I'm not a big fan of poly normally. I find it much harder to work with when you're sanding. I've been using oils recently, and just definitely I'm a convert to oil finishes, I think.
So with a poly finish, okay, what's the sort of drying time between coats on that?
So I don't think there'd be a difference from manufacturers, but you get different types of poly. So you can have a 1-part poly that you spray, and you can have a 2-part one where you mix the 2 parts together and they react.
Right.
But I've only ever seen anywhere you can recoat like the following day. So I normally do it in 24 hours.
Right.
But I have a system. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but I always do 3 coats in one session, 15 minutes apart, and then leave it 24 hours, then a light sand, another 3 coats, and then leave it 24 hours, and it might need a third set of 3 coats.
Oh, right.
Because the more coats you put on, even with a 2-part one, the thicker it's going to be. So if you've got something that needs to either get like acrylics dry by, I mean, the heat helps. I can't remember the exact. Again, God, I'm blaming the time. That they give off moisture. That's how they cure, right? And the thicker you've got them, the harder it is to do that. So the underlayers aren't going to cure as much, which is why you sometimes get paints where, like, if you think about mixing acrylic paint on a plate or a palette, sometimes it makes that skin over the top, but it's soft underneath. So when you're spraying, even though it's quite thin in comparison, you still can have a layer underneath which isn't going to dry as much. So you want to put it on not too thick. So I've always found 3 coats of whatever I do seems to be fine. And if I start pushing it to 4 or 5 coats, there's a problem or potential problem. Not always. And so even with the 2-part ones, where it's a chemical reaction, I prefer to put it on with 3. But also, most paints, maybe not nitro, because the way nitro works, it sort of melts into the previous surface. Most paints between coats, and not the 3 in one session, but between coats when you leave it to dry, you need to sand it to help to let it bond into what's there. But that also allows you to get rid of any flaws you've got, and especially if you've got pores and things. So that's why I think it's better to do it in 2 or 3 sessions, because you can get it much smoother then.
That sounds good. And when you sand it, what sort of grit are you using?
I use 600 or 400 if there's like bigger lumps. So that's the problem I had with poly. Occasionally, if you get drips in it, sometimes I found when I sanded it, it cracks more than using the other paints I use, the water-based ones or the nitro. But you've just got to not get drips in it.
No. No. No, it's why I don't really spray these days, because it's a real art. You either get the orange peel or you get drips. It's just getting that sweet spot in between. But no, it's good. So Aaron, so I was going to say, are you building guitars? I was going to say.
Say that again, Dave.
Are you building any guitars at the moment?
Yeah, I've got a few on the go. I've probably got too many to keep track of, but yeah, I'm doing a commission for a mate, which is getting close, which is a highly figured blackwood, and so that's what I'm actually really curious on the finish. So we're we're trying to work out what the best finish is for, because it is so highly figured. We really need to do it justice. And I was saying a bit last week as well, that he's a hobbyist knife maker. So he's actually made me a knife using the same timber that with this blackwood, and he's at the finishing stage for that. But for knife making, they're all stabilized, so the finishing process is very different than the guitar top. But it looks amazing the way it's been finished on the knife handle. So we're sort of using all the offcuts that he's going to have a play with that, and we'll try all these different finishes. So that's the one that I'm sort of focusing on the most. And then another one for myself, which is hiding in here somewhere. Same sort of body shape that I've been building, just with using different timbers, and this will be a Telecaster sort of style for hardware, and I've put chambered the body and put an F hole in, so I've never done an F hole before, so and probably double bound. So playing around with that one, chipping away with that in the background. But probably the main sort of building thing that I've been doing is building a neck carving jig, which is what I started. Actually found some plans and started that, I reckon, about a year and a half ago, and I've just been sort of chipping away. But I'm kind of at the stage I've actually made a few necks just out of wood that I've had lying around, and various fretboards. So I've probably got about 5 necks, including these guitar builds that are due to be carved. But I just want to get this jig right and done, so I can then profile existing guitar necks, and use that to sort of move ahead.
So is that with a router? As a router?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there's a few videos online that I can't remember the names of the people that have done them, but really good. So you build there's my hands on the screen. Yeah, the big box, and then it sort of it sits on a carriage which is suspended by springs or something like that, and then you have you build the 2 cams on either side of this carriage, and then you have a bearing that runs on the 2 carriages, which is the profile at each end of the neck. But there's one of it's an older video, but the guy had a way that you basically can attach like a bolt. So you get a bolt-on neck that's already made, you put that on the carriage, and then put like a blank sort of cam on either side, and drill you have like a little hole in each side, and put like a pencil lead through it. So, and then you have sort of 2 pins almost like on each end of the existing neck. And then as you rotate it, those pins will follow the profile of the neck, and the pencil lead, where's my hand up? The pencil lead that you've got stuck in the side is going to trace, it'll trace the profile that of the neck at the appropriate spot. So that's I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm getting really close and on school holidays at the moment, so I've got like another week. So I'm madly trying to get as much done.
You make a video of that?
Yeah, I as I said, there's 3 or 4 people that have kind of made them and explained them and gone through the whole build. So it won't be this is how you build one. So I'll just probably start filming next week. More just the things being made. And I'll probably start filming from profiling existing necks, because there's a lot of fiddling between parts and dimensions, and I've been 3D printing a lot of the parts for it, which has been really good. So the trolley that the router sits on the top, I've sort of 3D printed all of that, and just different parts to hold the neck in place, which you can do from wood. But when you've got a 3D printer and you can design it perfectly, it's that's actually been a lot of fun. So I think I'll sort of film those sort of bits when I actually get to the stage of using it, rather than the building part.
Well, that'd be really interesting, because I've watched quite a few videos of those sort of builds that you're talking about, but having a 3D printed element, I think, will be really good. But the thing you just mentioned about the basically copying a neck profile that exists, that sounds great.
Yeah, here's just so happens, so there's like one of the parts that I've printed. So that'll be like one of the pins that comes down from the top. So I'll sort of have two of these, and then they sort of that'll sit through like a bit of wood on the top, two sort of bits that go across. And that's essentially the pin. So that'll run, I'll put a bit of felt down on the bottom. So there'll be one of those on the 12th fret and one on the 1st fret. And that'll sort of rest on the existing neck that you've got. And then as you sort of, imagine it's sort of curved, as you sort of rotate the carriage, it'll sort of ride on that. And then, you sort of trace the profile on the end. Sort of, I don't know if I'm explaining it very well with my limited props and things, but yeah.
That's fascinating, no?
So like little things like that, people that have done them on the internet, they've either got like a block of wood or something in the router base, or like they've mocked up a bit of wood. But to do that, just to get the measurements right, because that's the thing you want to, when you're carving a neck, you want if your profiles are a couple of mil or half a mil out, that's going to have a big effect on how the neck feels. So you want to be, and you're going to leave room for sanding as well, but trying to calculate the depth that the router bit will be at on the router needs to be the same as what these were when you trace the profile. Because if you end up, as far as I can tell, if you end up having the router bit at a different depth when you actually route your neck, it'll add or subtract from the measurements that this is based on. So once again, 3D print it so you know that that's exact, rather than trying to make something out of wood and sand it and get it right. So they're the things, just that precision stuff with a 3D printer. That's a lot of fun to do.
I think I'm going to have to get one of these devices. Granddaughter's on to me to build parts for a robot, and I think, well, you can't do that out of wood.
Yeah.
Well, they've I don't know if it's still on, but Bamboo Lab, the one that my mate.
That's what I've got too. Yeah.
Yeah, they've just had a sale on, because Scott just bought one in their sale.
So, I mean, is that what you recommend? Is it that?
Well, Ray, who seems to be the expert on all things 3D printing, recommended them to me, but some of my friends have different ones. The thing Ray said about them is they've slightly, I may be paraphrasing him, revolutionized the way 3D printing works in their kind of interface that they have.
Right.
But I'm sure lots of them have great interfaces. And when we've had Owen on before, Owen talked about when he first got his 3D printers and how hard it was to set everything up. And I just find with mine, I press a button and it sets itself up and prints. And if I design something, I also press a button and it takes my design and sets it up to print. I don't have to think about anything.
That sounds really good. I'll be chatting to you about that, I think.
I've got the same. Yeah, I got the Bamboo Lab just because Ray said, I asked him, I was like, I'm thinking about getting like a really cheap entry-level one just to tinker and play around with. And he said, oh, look, get this one for this price, which was still like a really good price. I think mine was 500 Australian, give or take. And yeah, like Daniel's saying, you can change all the settings, but the default that the machine sort of, or the program recommends based on your design, for me, that's been fine probably all of the time. I can't sort of think of if something's failed due to the default setting that it's recommended.
So here's the thing that maybe a question for all of you and anyone in the chat and anyone watching in the future that might want to comment. What do you think about buying second-hand electrical tools like that? Because I've got quite a few tools that are second-hand. My cameras, almost always bought second-hand cameras because I can't afford the full price ones. My printer's not second-hand, but they always seem fine when I get them. I'm quite happy. It seems to be a way to get something at quite a bargain price often.
All my guitar equipment in the past was all second-hand. Yeah, I never bought anything new. I've got one new guitar. That's it. Everything else is, second-hand. I think you're right. Yeah, if you get a good quality, it's the way to go.
Yeah, a lot of the musical equipment, that I have is secondhand. I mean, there's a huge market. I mean, we have Reverb in the States. I don't know if you guys know what Reverb is.
Yeah.
And Reverb is like this huge marketplace and very trustworthy. And so it's all kind of based on a rating system. So it's really easy to like sell and also buy used musical equipment. So it's a great source to start, especially guitars, because I buy a lot of guitars. And some of them, are also, I get great deals because not only are they secondhand, but they're also maybe like second generation. So a lot of times these companies will release models every year, right? Like every year they get new models. And if you just wait one cycle, already in the used market, that price has gone way down. So it's a bargain.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think Bamboo Lab might be selling a lot of their printers cheap through their site at the moment, because I think they're about to launch a new whole, whatever generation they are of printers.
Are they on like a year cycle also?
I don't know, but when I got mine, Ray said, because that was on sale at the time, Ray said he thought it was because they were coming in for their new stuff. But I've had mine, I can't remember now, 6 months, 7 months. So I imagine maybe it's a year or two.
Yeah. No, I see. Alan says all these technologies are evolving quickly. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah. I think it's best to wait actually till these systems these tools are sort of stabilized to a certain extent, not necessarily get the latest.
I will say though, Daniel, I don't buy my camera equipment secondhand, but I will buy like a second generation. Like I've found that like new camera equipment is probably the way to go. But I'm not buying like the latest model. I'm buying like last year's model.
Yeah. So I've had 3, I think, digital SLRs that have been secondhand and all been fine. Just because, like, when I first got into doing digital photography, an SLR was so expensive. And that seemed to be the only way for me to afford it. But yeah, now, not that expensive.
Well, here's the reason why I don't trust secondhand, because like I look at the way I treat my camera gear. And so I could like be working in resin and then I like hit record or hit play and literally I'll glue the shutter button down with resin because I'm just like, I'm going back and forth. And then I have to like spend time like cracking resin out of the shutter button, right? So that's how I work, is I can, we're in a shop, right? And I can't imagine like photographers or videographers out in the field taking care of their cameras like that. I don't trust that at all.
Right.
Well, I tell you, I mean, I was a professional photographer for a time, and so I had my Hasselblad and my Nikon. But yes, I'll be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have sold anybody.
That's it. But I think a lot of maybe it's just the cameras I was after. I think a lot of people buy them thinking they'll be a professional hobbyist, like the next level hobbyist, and then don't use them.
Yeah.
I guess gone are the days of Jessup, Dave, where you could go in and check them out.
Well, do you know, it's funny that I think there is one in Worcester where I live nearby.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's still one there, yeah, or there's something like that. But I always look at it and think, gosh, how are you still in business? Because it's
yeah. Part of my degree involved photography, and there's a local Jessup. So Jessups were a place that sold camera equipment, but they sold darkroom equipment as well. I used to spend a lot of my lunch times walking around there looking at things that I could get and use.
I mean, all my photography, life in photography, about, I don't know, 10 years or so. I mean, that was all film, and there was no electronic cameras at all, nothing. I mean, weren't even color screens, let's be honest. I mean, it's just another world, isn't it now? Yeah, another world. Yeah.
Okay, hey Dave, what do you think about this crazy idea? You take some emulsion paste and then you paint that on a guitar top, and then you expose that to put some kind of like image on a guitar top. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, it would. I'm sure somebody might have tried that. Oh, dear. No.
That doesn't appeal to you then to do it.
No, I don't think I'll bother with that one.
Do you have a relationship then with photography where when you think about it too much, it reminds you of your old job, and you?
I so much enjoy photography. I mean, I was an industrial photographer, so it was machinery. I don't know, ships, tanks, or stuff like that. I mean, it was quite a variety of stuff that we filmed. Yeah, no, I always enjoyed it, and the video production side, or in those days it was film. So you were shooting film and editing that, and an editing suite. But yeah, I just always loved that, and yeah. So guitar building and filming it is sort of like the best place to be. But I mean, I've got one camera which I had a few years ago, bought for my birthday. I spent a bit of money on it as a Panasonic GH5, really lovely camera, and so I just treat it with kit gloves, really. Dust it down, keep it nice, because I won't be buying another one of them.
I feel like I want to go round everyone's workshops now, photograph their tools and see all the marks on them. Next book.
Yeah.
Oh, well, on that note, I will say we've talked a bit longer than normal, but we'll be back next Monday. Don't forget, if you're watching and you don't know about it, in the description to this video, we've got a link to the archive, which is slowly updating. We've got 85, I think, episodes before we moved over to this YouTube channel. But those episodes aren't like this one. Most of them are about an hour and a half long, and they tend to have a guest on where we talk to the guest about their experience guitar building. And if it's the first time, it's often their history of how they got into it and the tools they're like using and stuff like that. But if it's the second or third time on, we go off on various tangents, a bit more like today.
Excellent.
Great. And yeah, sorry, Arran, so you're back at school next week then?
I will be back at work, yeah, so I'll have to sit out for a little while again. There could be a few times that I'll be able to do in the morning if I plan ahead, which I often don't do. So yeah, normally this is the getting ready for work time. So it would mean I'd have to get up a little bit early and get ready and then jump in the live stream. So we'll see how we go.
Well, if it gets to a point where you've got your video up with your new jig.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as I said, over the next week I'll be working pretty hard to see how close I can get. So yeah, hopefully in a few weeks it'll be working. So yeah, if I get that up and done, I'll come on and share it here as well.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Right. Well, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone that's watching. Everyone in the chat.
Thanks everyone.
See you all next Monday.
Next week.